Hisham ibn Abd al-Malik, the last great Caliph of the Umayyads, the empire before the fall. The muezzin's call drifted across the Damascus sky, soft and solemn, echoing from the great courtyard of the Umayyad mosque. The marble floor glowed beneath the morning sun, and the scent of orange blossoms from palace gardens mingled with the faint hum of the city, a city that stood at the very heart of the world. This was Damascus in its golden hour, capital of the first great Muslim empire, where roads from 3 continents met, where merchants spoke in the tongues of every land, and where the Caliph ruled over more souls than any emperor alive. But the Caliph himself, Hisham ibn Abd al-Malik, was not a man of indulgence or vanity. His world was one of discipline, duty, and quiet contemplation. History remembers him as the last great ruler of the Umayyads, a man who held the empire together with sheer will, even as cracks began to form beneath its polished surface. A kingdom restored to order. When Hisham ascended the throne in 724 CE, the Umayyad world was weary. The pious reformer Umar ibn Abdulaziz had passed, leaving behind a legacy of justice and humility. His immediate successors, however, failed to live up to his moral standard. Under Yazid II, the empire had seen uncertainty and hesitation. By the time Hisham took power, the Caliphate was stable yet uneasy, prosperous but restless. The governors ruled vast territories stretching from the Atlantic to the Indus, but many acted with little accountability. The treasury brimmed with gold, yet corruption gnawed at the system like rust. Hisham's first act was to bring back order. He summoned his administrators, reduced excessive spending, and began to audit the empire's finances. "The people's wealth," he once said, "is not mine to waste. I'm only a shepherd entrusted with their trust." He dismissed corrupt governors, cut down unnecessary luxuries at court, and restored a tone of austerity that reminded many of the earlier caliphs. In a time of excess, his frugality stood out. While his courtiers dined lavishly, Hisham's meals were simple: bread, dates, and olive oil. He wore plain clothes, often refusing silks and jewels. His personal life echoed the humility that once defined the Rashidun caliphs. The man behind the throne. Hisham was a man of paradox, stern yet patient, powerful yet introspective. Chroniclers say he rarely laughed, yet he had a dry humor that could disarm the proudest courtier. Once, when a poet lavished him with flattery, calling him the sun that never sets, Hisham smiled faintly and replied, "The sun sets every evening, my friend. Be careful not to worship what vanishes." He believed in accountability, not blind adoration. And unlike many rulers before him, Hisham did not surround himself solely with yes-men. His court was filled with scholars, jurists, and advisors who could speak truth to power. Men like the great jurist Ibn Shihab al-Zuhri, who had served under earlier caliphs and advised moderation in governance. But Hisham was also practical. He knew that moral virtue alone could not sustain an empire of this size. The Caliphate at this stage was no longer a collection of tribes. It was a vast and intricate civilization with roads, bureaucracy, taxation, and armies that required discipline and vision. The empire's pulse: administration and reform. Hisham reorganized the Diwan, the bureaucratic registers that recorded salaries and military rosters. He introduced stricter accounting, reducing the wasteful spending of provincial officials. Taxes were collected more efficiently, but Hisham also ordered that no man be overburdened. "Do not take from the people what weakens their hand," he instructed his governors, "for when the farmer's back breaks, so too does the empire." He appointed Khalid al-Khazri as governor of Iraq, a man known for his administrative talent and firm rule, though his harshness would later stir resentment. In Khorasan in the Far East, Hisham kept a wary eye. It was a land of warriors, converts, and tension between Arab tribes. He knew that whoever controlled Khorasan controlled the empire's eastern heart. His reforms brought several years of stability. The treasury filled again, roads and fortresses were rebuilt, and the Umayyad administration regained some of its lost efficiency. But as Hisham governed with a steady hand, storm clouds gathered far away, unseen but growing. The sword and the shield, wars on the frontiers. No caliph could ignore the empire's frontiers. The Umayyads were surrounded by ambitious foes: the Byzantines in the north, the Turks and Khazars beyond the Caucasus, and the Berbers and Franks in the west. Hisham's armies were constantly on the move. He launched annual raids into Byzantine territory, keeping the great Roman Empire of the East perpetually on defense. His generals captured fortresses in Asia Minor and brought back spoils that impressed even his critics. But war is a hungry beast. Every victory demanded new soldiers, new taxes, new sacrifices. In the Far East, in Transoxiana, modern Uzbekistan, Muslim armies under Asad ibn Abdallah al-Kasri fought to maintain control over rebellious territories. The people of those lands, Persians, Sogdians, Turks, had accepted Islam but resented Arab dominance. Many new Muslims, the Mawali, were treated as second-class citizens, taxed unfairly and excluded from full participation in the army or administration. Their discontent simmered, unseen, waiting for a spark. Hisham's generals fought bravely, but the distances were immense. The empire had reached its natural limits. For every step forward, another front strained under pressure. Culture and learning in Damascus. Yet even as the frontiers burned, Damascus flourished like never before. Hisham's court was a place of scholars and poets. The Caliph himself, though stern, loved literature and encouraged debate. His patronage allowed Islamic scholarship to blossom. Hadith were collected more systematically, and jurists refined the principles of law. It was during his reign that the first seeds of organized Islamic education began to take shape. Scholars like al-Zuri trained a generation of students who would carry forward the knowledge of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and the early community. The arts too thrived. The Umayyad desert palaces, Qasr al-Hayr, Kirbat al-Mafjar, and Qusair Amra, were built during or around his reign, masterpieces of early Islamic architecture. Their frescoes, mosaics, and gardens spoke of a civilization confident in its taste and identity. To travelers, Damascus was a marvel, a city of marble columns, perfumed gardens, and bustling markets filled with silk from China, spices from India, and gold from Africa. The world had never seen an Islamic capital so grand. The cracks beneath the marble. But as with all empires, glory cast long shadows. Within the army, rivalries between Qais and Yaman tribes deepened. Each saw itself as the true guardian of Arab prestige, and their feuds turned battles into blood vendettas. In Khorasan, the Mawali began to voice their anger. They had embraced Islam sincerely, yet they were still treated as inferiors to Arab tribesmen. "Are we not Muslims like you?" they asked. Their grievances spread quietly, and would, in time, become the rallying cry for the Abbasid revolution. Even within Hisham's own family, discord brewed. His son Maslama, an ambitious and capable commander, yearned for greater authority. The old Caliph's insistence on discipline and restraint alienated younger princes raised in luxury. Hisham saw all this. He once told his advisor, "When the hearts of men grow tired of justice, tyranny returns wearing the mask of freedom." He understood that the empire's greatest threat was not external, it was internal decay. The aging Caliph and his worries. In his later years, Hisham became increasingly reflective. He was in his 60s, old by the standards of his time, yet he still governed actively, rarely delegating major decisions. Witnesses describe him walking through the streets of Damascus in plain clothes, listening to the people's grievances. He scolded governors who lived in opulence and reprimanded judges who delayed verdicts. Despite his reputation for austerity, Hisham's reign was not joyless. He enjoyed the company of poets and scholars, often testing their wit. One poet once recited, "O Caliph, your justice is like rain, it falls everywhere." Hisham smiled and replied, "Then pray that it never floods." But behind the humor was a growing sense of unease. He had preserved order and prosperity, but he sensed that his generation was the last to understand the weight of leadership. His successors, he feared, would inherit the empire's wealth, but not its discipline. Death of the last great caliph. In 743 CE, after 19 years of rule, Hisham fell ill. As his health declined, the empire held its breath. He had ruled longer than most of his predecessors, and under him, the Umayyads had reached the height of administrative and cultural sophistication. But when he died, that fragile balance collapsed. He left behind an empire that was strong in appearance, wealthy, expansive, glorious, yet hollow within. The unity that had once bound the Arab tribes, the moral purpose that had once guided the early caliphs, had all but faded. Hisham's death marked the end of an era. Within a decade, the Umayyad dynasty would unravel in civil wars, assassinations, and the Great Abbasid Revolution. But that story belongs to another episode. For now, as the sun set over Damascus that evening in 743 CE, the Muezzin's call echoed once more from the Umayyad mosque, the same call that had marked the dawn of their glory. Only now it carried a quieter note, a reminder that no empire, no matter how mighty, lasts forever. Reflections. Hisham ibn Abd al-Malik stands as a paradox in Islamic history, a ruler of immense strength and restraint, who brought order and prosperity, yet could not stop the decay that history had already set in motion. His reign was the Umayyads' last heartbeat of greatness, the moment when faith, power, and culture still walked hand in hand. He was not the most celebrated caliph, nor the most beloved, but he was perhaps the last to truly understand what it meant to be responsible for an entire world. The empire he left behind glittered like gold in the setting sun, still radiant, still magnificent, but only for a moment longer. Enjoying the series so far? Please subscribe and share the video with your friends and family. More interesting videos coming shortly. Stay tuned.